"Please don't look under the sack," she begged. But the rancher did, and what he saw broke his heart. The wind rolled soft across the prairie that morning, tugging at the tall grass like an old friend come calling. Jed Holt reined in his stallion at the crest of a dusty bluff overlooking the bend in the road just south of Elk Ridge. His sharp blue eyes scanned the land like they always did, quiet, deliberate, untrusting. The land never lied. But people? That was another matter. The stallion snorted and sidestepped. Something was wrong. Down near the old fence where the cattle trail once passed, a shape stood in the dirt, too still for a bush, too thick for a post. Jed narrowed his eyes. It was a figure, a person, tied, wrapped in thick rope like a hog before branding. A coarse burlap sack hung over the head and shoulders. Whoever it was didn't move, didn't twitch when the wind picked up, just stood there, slumped slightly, like a forgotten scarecrow in a field nobody planted. Jed kicked his boot gently against the horse's flank. "Easy now, Boone. We're just looking," he murmured. He rode down slow. Closer now, the figure came into clearer view, small hands bound at the front, wrists red from rubbing. The dress, what remained of it, was torn, dusty, once blue. Thick legs beneath it, not small, not frail. Whoever this was, they were full-figured, maybe too heavy to carry off easily, which might be why they'd been left behind. He dismounted. No movement. He drew his revolver and stepped slow. "Ma'am," he called gently, unsure if it was a woman. The curves suggested so. "I ain't here to hurt you." Still no response. His boot crunched in the dirt as he stepped forward. The closer he got, the more he could see the bruises on the arms. Dark, angry purple blotches against pale skin. He slid the pistol back into its holster, then reached up. The sack was tied with twine at the base of her throat. As he undid the knot, she flinched. "Easy," he said softly. "It's over." She whimpered, barely a sound, like a dog expecting to be kicked. Jed hesitated, then slowly pulled the sack up and away, and froze. Underneath was a face so soft, so breathtakingly pretty, he forgot how to breathe for a second. Not beautiful in a made-up, practiced way, but like a painting made by someone who loved softness. Big blue eyes ringed with lashes, wide and watery. A delicate nose, smudged with dirt. Full lips trembling. And cheeks rounded, yes, but angelic. She looked young. Maybe 25, 26. Her face didn't match the rest of her worn, heavy-set frame. And yet somehow it all made sense. She was a woman who'd tried to disappear inside herself. Her lips moved. "Please," she whispered, eyes darting to his. "Don't look under the sack." Jed swallowed hard. His voice caught somewhere between his chest and his heart. "Too late for that, darlin'," he said gently. "I already seen you." And he had. Not just her face, but her. Every damn part the world tried to throw away. 24 hours earlier, in a weather-beaten farmhouse 10 miles east of Elk Ridge, 3 sisters shared the same blood, but nothing else. The kitchen smelled of boiled cabbage and bitterness. Corinne Calloway sat at the head of the table, her back ramrod straight, her long thin fingers wrapped around a chipped teacup like she was holding judgment itself. Her black hair was scraped into a tight bun so severe it made her eyebrows arch naturally, always giving the impression she was displeased, even when silent. Across from her, Maribel sat picking at her nails with the end of a hairpin. She was dressed too nice for a Tuesday. Too much rouge on her cheeks. Too much perfume for a house with no guests. "She should be thanking us," Corinne said finally, breaking the silence. "We're giving her a second chance." Maribel snorted. A second chance? At what, being ignored by the world again? She was becoming a disgrace, Corinne continued, unbothered. Walking around town with that face and that body, like a frosted cake left out in the sun. Both women laughed, tight, dry, joyless. Lorna May sat in the pantry. She hadn't meant to overhear, but she'd gone in for pickles and stayed for survival. She pressed her back against the cool wood of the cupboard and hugged her knees to her chest. She wasn't crying. Not yet. She was good at not crying. They always made her feel like it was her fault. For being born last, for being praised as a child, for having their father's eyes and her mother's sweet singing voice. When she was little, they used to pinch her arms when no one was looking. "You think you're special?" Corinne would sneer. "You're just soft. That's all. Weak things get eaten." So Lorna started eating before anything could eat her. Food made her invisible. It filled the hollow places. And over time it built walls. Walls no man seemed to want to climb. She tried to disappear. But even that wasn't enough. Now they said she was shameful. Embarrassing. Too big. Too much. So they made a plan. One night, after supper, Corinne cornered her in the hallway. You want to be loved again, don't you? She said sweetly. Lorna's heart fluttered. She nodded, unsure. Then let's start over, Maribel said from behind, holding a length of rope. It happened so fast. A cloth over her mouth, a fist to her stomach, the back of her head cracking wood, and darkness. When she woke, her wrist burned, her cheeks stung, her dress was torn, and her eyes were blinded by burlap. The sack. Corinne's voice whispered in her ear. Maybe someone will find you pretty again if they don't see your body first. Then came the laughter, cold, distant, and footsteps walking away. Back in the present. Jed lifted the girl Lorna gently into his arms. She didn't resist. She didn't move at all. Just a low, shuddering breath as he carried her to his horse. You're safe now, he said, though he wasn't sure she believed it. But he meant it, because something inside Jed Holt, who'd never wanted a damn thing since the day he built his ranch, had suddenly changed, and he didn't even know her name yet. The Holt Ranch sat on 800 acres of red dirt country that rolled like a lazy tide beneath the Texas sun. It wasn't the biggest spread in the county, but it was the most respected because of one man, Jed Holt. He didn't talk much, didn't drink with the boys after cattle drives, didn't court women in the church pews like the others his age. He built his ranch the way most men built fences, hard, deliberate, and meant to keep pain on the outside. And it worked, until now. Until her. He brought her home wrapped in a wool blanket and silence. Zeke Boone, his longtime foreman and only real friend, met him on the porch with raised brows. Jed, what the hell is that? Jed slid down from Boone, his horse, and carried the woman gently up the steps. She's not that. She's hurt, tied up out by the cattle bend. Don't know how long she'd been standing there. Zeke scratched his beard, eyes narrowing at the unconscious girl. Who'd do a thing like that? Jed didn't answer, just nudged the door open with his boot and carried her inside. He laid her on the cot near the fireplace, the one he kept for drifters or broken saddle hands needing a night's sleep. He pulled a clean quilt from the linen chest and covered her up to the chin. She still hadn't opened her eyes. Her cheeks were flushed red from sun exposure. There was dried blood near her temple and along her lip. Her hands trembled in sleep. But her face, it wasn't just pretty, it was undeniably beautiful. She looked like she didn't know it. That broke something in Jed. Later, after he'd cleaned her cuts, rubbed salve on her wrists, and boiled a pot of beans, he sat in his chair and watched her from across the room. He tried not to, but his eyes kept drifting. Zeke leaned against the wall, arms crossed. She a runaway? He asked. Jed shook his head. Don't think so. You gonna keep her here? Jed didn't answer that either. After a pause, Zeke said quietly, You ever wonder why you built this house too big for one man? Jed looked up. Zeke shrugged. Maybe it was waiting for someone. That night, around midnight, she woke. She flinched when she saw Jed across the room, sitting by the dying firelight. He didn't move. Where am I? Her voice cracked like a broken instrument. You're safe, he said. Name's Jed Holt. This is my ranch. Her hands instinctively reached for her face, as if to check if the sack was still there. Then she stared at him with wide, confused eyes. I didn't think anyone would stop. He said nothing. After a long pause, she whispered. They said I was too much, too soft, too ugly. Jed tilted his head. They lied. Her eyes flickered, as if those words had cracked something inside her. She looked away. Don't say that. Why not? Because I'll believe it, she said softly. Jed leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You got a name? She hesitated. Lorna. He nodded once. That's a good name. Lorna May? She nodded slowly. He stood up and poured her a tin cup of water, then knelt by the cot to offer it. When she took it, their fingers brushed. She winced. You're hurt, he said. I'm used to it. Jed shook his head. Well, I ain't. She looked at him fully then. In the firelight, her eyes glistened, not with fear, but with something far sadder. Disbelief. Like being cared for was harder to accept than cruelty. For 2 days, she barely spoke. Jed didn't press her. He brought her warm meals, soft potatoes, cornbread, broth, and set them quietly beside her bed. She ate only what she needed. No more, no less. When he offered to call the doctor, she shook her head. No one needs to know I'm here, she whispered. So Jed mended her himself, with gentle hands, cotton cloths, and the kind of patience that didn't ask anything in return. She'd watch him from the corner of her eye when she thought he wasn't looking. The way he chopped firewood in the morning, sleeves rolled up. The way he paused by the front fence as the sun dipped low, a lone silhouette in a world too wide for most men. But he wasn't like most men. He didn't stare at her the way others had. didn't flinch at her curves or look past her when she talked. He just listened. And on the third night, as rain tapped soft against the windows and the fire warmed the room with a low golden glow, she finally spoke. He was sipping coffee, boots kicked up near the hearth. "I used to sing," she said. Jed looked over, surprised, not by the words, but by the sound of her voice. Clearer than before, less guarded. "Singing's good," he replied. "I stopped after Mama died." He nodded once. "That'll do it." There was a long pause. Then quietly, "My sisters hated me, still do." Jed didn't respond, just kept sipping. "They say I stole all the attention, that I was too pretty as a girl. That Mama smiled more at me than at them." Jed watched her, waited. "I started eating to disappear. I thought if I got big enough, maybe I wouldn't be a threat." She laughed softly. No humor in it. "They stopped hating me after a while, just started ignoring me instead, until I got too big. Then they said I was embarrassing, disgusting, like I couldn't win either way." Jed set his cup down gently. She was staring at the flames now, her voice steady and slow, like a wound draining for the first time. "I ate when I was scared, when I was sad, when I didn't want anyone to look at me." She looked over at him, her eyes wet. "It's stupid, I know." Jed shook his head. "Ain't stupid. It's human." Her lips trembled. "No man ever looked at me like a woman. Just a lesson. Like, don't end up like her." He leaned forward. "I looked at you." She blinked. He continued, quiet but sure. "When I lifted that sack, I saw a woman I could never forget." Her lip quivered. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to. Not yet. I just know what I saw. And I don't lie, Lorna May." She broke then. Not all at once, not loud, just a shuddering breath, a gasp, and then tears spilled down her cheeks, like they'd been waiting years for permission. Jed moved slow, gave her time. Then as she curled into herself, shoulders shaking with the weight of memory, he crossed the room and knelt beside her cot. He didn't say a word, just wrapped his arms around her, held her like he'd hold a bird with a broken wing, careful, quiet, steady. And there in that fire-lit room, Lorna cried for the first time in years, not because she was weak, but because for the first time she wasn't alone. The air was thick with summer heat, the day they showed up. Jed was working the south fence with Zeke, hammering in new posts. While the cattle grazed along the ridge, the house stood quiet behind him, Lorna inside, humming softly as she folded linens near the open window. Her voice had come back lately, not in full songs, but in soft little hums and half-sung verses. It made the place feel alive in a way it hadn't since Jed first built it. Then he heard the hoofbeats. 2 horses, lightweight riders. He could tell by the rhythm. He turned just as Zeke cursed under his breath. "Well, I'll be. Looks like Perfume's riding in on horseback." 2 women dismounted near the hitching post. Both were dressed like they were heading to a cotillion, not a working ranch. Corinne in tight black with lace gloves and a parasol, her face sharp as ever. Maribel in dusty pink, breasts half spilling out of her corset, lips too red, eyes too sweet. "Afternoon, Mr. Holt," Corinne cooed, her voice as smooth as snake oil. Jed didn't move, just crossed his arms and squinted into the sun. "You lost?" Maribel laughed, high and light. "Not at all. We heard a little rumor you found someone near the cattle bend. Poor soul, just dropped off like trash." Jed's jaw twitched. Corinne stepped closer, her voice dropping into something low and syrupy. "We just came to thank you for your kindness. Whoever she was, I'm sure she's moved along by now." Jed didn't answer. Behind him, the screen door creaked. He turned his head. Lorna stood there, framed in sunlight, barefoot, her soft blue dress catching the breeze. Her hair was brushed now, braided down her back. Her cheeks still full, her figure still curvy, but her posture different. She looked like someone who had nothing left to fear. Maribel blinked. Corinne's parasol drooped. "You're," Corinne stammered. Lorna stepped forward slowly, her voice calm. "Yes, I'm here. Sorry to disappoint you." There was a moment, just a flicker, where Corinne's mouth fell open, but she caught herself and quickly pasted on a smile. "We were worried is all," she said. "We thought maybe a coyote had taken you." "Coyote's got better manners," Zeke muttered. Jed stepped forward now, planting himself between Lorna and her sisters. "You two need to leave," Corinne blinked. "Excuse me," I said. "This is my land, and you're not welcome on it." Maribel pouted. "We were just trying to be neighborly." "You don't fool me," Jed said flatly. "I saw your work. Rope burns on her wrists, sack on her head, bruises that didn't come from falling." He looked at them like a man measuring the weight of truth. You don't come near her again." Corinne's smile cracked. "She's our sister." Jed's voice dropped to a low, steady growl. "She's mine now." Lorna's breath caught. Corinne flushed, eyes flashing. "Well, I see how it is." Maribel narrowed her gaze, trying one last time. "You really want her?" Jed didn't even blink. "I already do." They left without another word. Dust curled behind their horses as they rode off fast and bitter. Back on the porch, Lorna stood frozen. "You said I was yours," she whispered. Jed looked at her. "Ain't the kind of man who says things he don't mean." She opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came, just her eyes, shining. That night, as she washed dishes beside him, she caught him watching her again. "What?" she asked, cheeks pink. He gave a soft shrug. "Just wondering how someone so beautiful got lost in this world long enough for me to find her." She didn't look away this time. She smiled, and for once she didn't feel hungry. Something changed after that day. Not just in how Jed looked at her, that had always been steady, kind, but in how Lorna began to look at herself. She no longer tiptoed through the house like an unwanted guest. She didn't flinch when Zeke tipped his hat at her in the morning, and she didn't hide her humming anymore. In fact, by the end of the second week, she was singing again. Soft little verses while peeling apples on the porch, low hums while sweeping dust from the corners of the kitchen, a few bold notes while hanging laundry in the warm wind. And it wasn't just her voice that changed. Her appetite began to fade, not because she was forcing herself to stop eating, but because for the first time in her life, she didn't feel empty. She didn't need food to keep her safe. Jed saw it before she did. The way her eyes seemed clearer in the morning, the way she sat a little straighter at supper, the quiet smile she wore when the breeze touched her face. One afternoon she insisted on fixing the torn curtain in the barn's side window. Jed tried to stop her. "You don't need to do all that." But she shushed him. "I want to. It feels good, like I'm part of something." He nodded. She climbed a small step stool with a needle and thread and stitched the tear closed, sunlight catching her hair in a golden haze. Jed watched from the doorway, arms crossed. "She's glowing," Zeke murmured from behind him. "Don't know if she's losing weight or just finding herself, but you did good, boss." Jed didn't answer. He was too caught in the way Lorna hummed to herself, completely unaware of how the light hit her face just right. Months passed like that. 6 to be exact. Lorna helped around the ranch, but never because she had to, because she wanted to. She laughed more, sang louder, and the weight, it began to melt away without notice. She still had curves, still soft, still womanly, but now her steps were lighter, her cheeks brighter, her smile, well, it came easier than breath. The townsfolk started noticing. At church they whispered behind fans, "Is that the Calloway girl?" "No, can't be. She was always big." But look at her now. She heard it all. But for once it didn't hurt, because she no longer cared about what others said. Not when a man like Jed Holt looked at her like she held the stars in her eyes. One evening she was baking biscuits in the kitchen when Jed walked in, dust from the field still clinging to his sleeves. He leaned against the doorway and watched her. She glanced over. "What?" He just smiled. "Smells good." "I meant the look," she teased, brushing flour from her cheek. "You keep staring at me like I'm some kind of miracle." He didn't move. "Maybe you are." She turned back to the dough, cheeks warm, fingers shaking just a little. Then, softly, "I'm not used to being looked at that way." "You'd better get used to it," Jed said gently, "because I ain't about to stop." She looked up. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Not urgency, not lust, something deeper. He stepped forward. She didn't back away. "You still think no man'd want to marry you?" he asked. She laughed, soft and breathless. "Why? You askin' again?" His answer was quiet. "Yes." She froze, then smiled, slowly, shyly, surely. "I'll think on it," she whispered. But they both knew her answer was already written in the way she looked at him. The first snowfall came early that year. A thin frost kissed the porch railings and turned the pasture into a sea of silver under the pale moonlight. Inside the warm kitchen, a fire crackled in the stove, casting shadows across the wooden walls. Lorna stood at the window, watching the snowflakes drift. A quiet calm had settled in her chest, the kind that didn't come from things outside, but from something blooming within. Behind her, Jed entered the kitchen, brushing off snow from his shoulders. He set a small bundle down on the table, mail from town wrapped in string. "You all right?" he asked gently. She turned to him, smiling. Just thinking. He raised a brow. Dangerous business. She laughed. It is when I start thinking about you. That made him grin. She walked over and opened the mail bundle. Inside was a letter from the church, some seed catalogs, and a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. She opened it last. Inside was a little music box. She blinked. Did you? He had rubbed the back of his neck. Saw it in town last week. Made me think of you. She turned the key. A slow, tinkling melody filled the room. Soft, like a lullaby from somewhere far away. Her eyes welled. No one's ever bought me anything like this before. Jed shrugged. You've earned it. She set it down and turned to face him. I've been thinking about what you asked, she said quietly. He met her eyes. And, she smiled, not shy, not unsure, but clear and steady. Yes. Jed didn't speak, just stepped forward and took her face in his hands. Calloused fingers, warm against her skin. He bent his forehead to hers. You sure? I'm not the same girl you found under that sack, she whispered. But I still don't feel like I deserve someone like you. He pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. You don't have to deserve love, Lorna May. You just have to stop running from it. She kissed him. Not like in the stories. Not fire and thunder. But like something sacred, long awaited. When they parted, she rested her head on his chest and listened to the quiet beat of something that had always been steady. Him. A month later, the town gathered. The barn was strung with lanterns and white cotton ribbon. Wildflowers lined the path, dried and saved from the last good bloom of fall. The air smelled like cinnamon and pine. Lorna wore a simple cream dress. Her hair was curled and pinned with little pearls. She was still soft, still curvy, but radiant, not because she had changed her shape, but because she no longer hated it. She looked out at the crowd, and there they were. Her sisters, Corin and Maribel, standing stiff near the back, their faces frozen. She almost faltered. But then Jed took her hand, and Lorna lifted her chin. When the preacher said, "Does anyone object?" the only sound was the wind through the trees. And when Jed kissed her, it wasn't just a promise. It was a reckoning. After the vows, as the town clapped and cheered, Corinne turned to leave. Maribel didn't move. She was crying. Not loud, not showy. Just a tear trailing down her powdered cheek. She looks beautiful, she whispered. Corinne's jaw tightened. She always did. That was the problem. Later, as the sun dipped low and the lanterns glowed golden, Jed led Lorna in a slow dance on the barn floor. You sure you're mine now? He teased. She leaned into him. I've always been yours. Just took me a while to believe I was worth keeping.